In a world where opportunities seem endless for some, there are others still fighting for the light. Picture this: a late-night encounter in a millionaire's luxurious penthouse. The city lights glow in the distance, but inside, there's a quiet, mystery unraveling. As the millionaire steps into the room, he pauses, seeing a figure hunched over in the corner of his lavish study. But this isn't just any figure, it's someone who, despite the odds, is determined to rise above their circumstances. What happens next will change everything. This is not just a story of struggle, but of revelation and a lesson no one expected. It was late in the evening when Chris Johnson, a successful millionaire businessman, decided to stay late at his penthouse, working on deals that could change the course of his empire. The office was sleek, filled with expensive bookshelves and artwork, but the one thing that caught his attention wasn't the decor. It was the young woman sitting by the window, her face barely visible in the dim light. Marie, the cleaning lady, was someone Chris often saw in passing but never paid much attention to. She was a quiet, unassuming woman who worked the night shift, picking up after the extravagant events he hosted. At first glance, she seemed like just another part of the scenery, but tonight something was different. As Chris walked closer, he noticed that Marie wasn't cleaning at all. Instead, she was seated at the farthest corner of the room, squinting over a stack of old textbooks, her face illuminated by the soft glow of her phone's screen. Her fingers danced across the pages of a digital textbook, furiously trying to study for something. What was she doing here, so late, surrounded by the opulence that he'd spent his life building? Why was she studying in the dark when her shift was supposed to be over? Chris stood silently for a moment, watching her, his mind trying to make sense of the unexpected scene before him. The tension built as Chris stood there, still unsure whether to interrupt her or quietly leave the room. Finally, unable to resist his curiosity, he spoke. "Why are you still here?" Marie looked up, startled by his voice, quickly trying to hide the textbooks and turn off her phone. I'm sorry, sir," she said quietly, avoiding his gaze. She knew that this wasn't the place for studying, especially for someone like her. She wasn't supposed to be in the millionaire's office, let alone studying under the poor conditions of the late-night shift. But Chris had already noticed. Chris took a step forward. "What are you studying? It's way past midnight." Marie hesitated before replying, her voice small but firm. "I'm working towards my degree. I know it's tough, but I have to keep trying. I have to prove to myself that I can do this." Chris stared at her, taken aback. He'd never really thought much about the people who worked for him beyond their jobs. They were invisible to him, part of the background of his success. But now, standing before this young woman, he couldn't ignore the weight of her determination. "What's your degree in?" he asked, his voice softer than he expected. She looked up at him, surprised by the genuine interest. "Business, like you." Chris couldn't help but feel an unexpected rush of respect for her. Here was someone who had so little but still believed in her ability to rise. She was studying for something bigger than herself, something that could break the chains of her circumstances. As Chris and Marie continued talking, the conversation shifted from polite small talk to something far more profound. Marie shared her story, how she had grown up in a neighborhood where education was scarce and poverty was a constant shadow. She worked multiple jobs just to make ends meet, and cleaning was the only consistent work she could find. But it wasn't just about surviving. It was about building a future, one small step at a time. She was trying to build a life where her children would never have to struggle as she did. Chris felt the weight of her words as he listened. He could see the spark in her eyes, the same spark he once had when he was working toward his first big break. But as the conversation progressed, something inside him shifted. He realized that he had been blind to the struggles of people like Marie, people who worked so hard just to make something of themselves, yet often remained invisible to those who held the power. And then, as Marie stood to leave, exhausted but determined to keep going, Chris did something unexpected. He walked over to his desk, grabbed an envelope, and handed it to her. "Here," he said, "this is a scholarship for your studies. You don't have to work another shift in this place if you don't want to. Go back to school. Finish your degree." Marie's eyes widened. "But why?" she whispered. "Because," Chris said with a gentle smile, "I see what you're doing, and I respect it." The following weeks brought about a profound change. Marie accepted the scholarship, and soon after, she quit her night shifts and focused entirely on her education. Chris, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about what he had done. He realized that in offering that scholarship, he had given more than just financial aid. He had given Marie a chance to break free from the cycle of poverty that she had been trapped in. Chris became more involved in community initiatives, offering scholarships and mentorship programs for young people from underprivileged backgrounds. And Marie? She graduated a few years later, earning her degree in business, and went on to start her own company. But the story didn't end there. Chris learned a valuable lesson that night. The true measure of success wasn't in the money he accumulated or the luxurious things he owned. It was in the impact he had on others, in helping them rise above their circumstances and find their own success. In the end, he left everyone with a powerful takeaway. How many people have we overlooked in our lives simply because they didn't have the opportunities we had? And what can we do to change that?